What's up everyone, Tim here from Everyday Tactical Vids, and today we're looking at the SOG Seal Strike. And this knife came to us directly from SOG for review. If you're a fan of Everyday Tactical Vids, you've been subscribed to us for a while, you know that we looked at this knife a while ago out at SHOT Show 2015 in Las Vegas. This knife is kind of in the line of the Seal Pup and other fixed blades like that. As you look at it, you can see it definitely has a very tactical look. It has been marketed by different people as a survival knife as well. We'll talk about that. In my opinion, it's going to lean toward the tactical but be usable in survival applications as well. There are a couple different options. You can get it with a titanium nitride coating, or you can get it with a powder coat. You can also get it with this kind of silver or satin inlay on the handle, or you can get it with one that's much more subdued and black. And then there are a couple options for this sheath. You can get a standard sheath, or you can get a deluxe sheath. Let me give you some of the specs on this knife. 9.6 inches from end to end, 4.9 inches is your blade length. Your weight is 5.6 ounces. Your blade thickness is 0.16 inches. As I mentioned, there are a couple different types of finishes on your actual blade. It is going to be Aussate steel regardless of what knife you get. Your Rockwell hardness is going to be between 56 and 58. And that's kind of the basics on it. The one other thing I'll mention is they call it a clip point. This is kind of a unique, looking knife. You got the serrations, you got the very serious jimping here, you got this divot here. Just a lot of cool things and different things when it comes to the actual blade style. Let me show you what the sheath looks like, and then we'll talk through some of the specs, and then we'll go out and show you what the knife looks like in use. What we're looking at here is the deluxe sheath. What I can tell you about the standard sheath is it looks like it's either plastic or Kydex. I'm pretty sure it's a molded plastic on the bottom section, and then a ballistic nylon up here for the section you're going to actually attach to your belt. Now this one is the deluxe sheath because it has a bunch of extra features built into it. The first thing you'll see is that there is a metal clip here, so you can use that to attach it to your belt. There's also a option to loop your belt through there, so you can actually firmly attach it to your belt when you're carrying the knife. We do have this little silver thing here, and I have to put the knife in to show you what that looks like, but this slides. Let me do it here, get a good angle, there you go. Down and up, down, and when your blade is then in there, now you can use this as a line cutter or a strap cutter. The two other things, as far as some of the additional features, that you do have a carbide sharpener built in here, and that's not going to be for sharpening your knife when it's completely dull, but just keeping an edge on it. And then over here, there's actually a ferro rod built into the sheath. The other thing that's nice about this is with these 4 bolts, you can take those out and you can put the section that's going to attach to your belt on the other side. You can flip it around, and it's going to be good for right or left-handed carry. Here's a look at the sheath with this section drop down so you can get into the blade of your knife. So that's your line cutter right there, and then you can close it up just by doing that. And so now you're not going to accidentally cut yourself or something, and then just slide it back down like this. And now your blade is exposed to serve as a line or strap cutter. We'll show you the ferro rod real quickly here in use. Again, it's on this portion of the actual sheath. And what SOG shows on their video on their website is using this portion of the knife to throw some sparks off that. So let me just get this lined up. There's a little bit of that black coating on there, so I may have to scrape some of it off just a little bit to expose the actual, the rest of the ferro rod. But I'll show you what this looks like here. So that definitely works quite effectively. And as the smoke clears there, those are your features. Essentially, the only other thing I'll tell you is that when it comes to the sharpener, you're gonna put your blade like so, and then gently pull back. Blade like so, gently pull back, and that's what that looks like. Here's a look at the knife in hand. Very comfortable. I like the way it's got those finger grooves. They just fall nicely. And so you can hold like this, you can choke up, hold it like this. The thing that a lot of people noted when they first saw this is that the jimping is quite aggressive, and I'll do a zoom in there so you can see what that actually looks like. Something that comes up oftentimes with a fixed blade like this is, do you like serrations, do you not? This one obviously has serrations. They don't offer an option without serrations, so just keep that in mind. This inlay, it's kind of cool looking. I guess the one thing is, does it add anything extra to the actual function of the knife? Does it give extra stability? I don't think so. So that I might be a little bit concerned about over the long-term use, if that's going to loosen up and fall out. If it does, it doesn't look like it's going to affect the actual handle, but that's just something to keep in mind. I do want to show you here on the end, you do have an exposed pommel. This is a full tang knife, so your metal's running here all the way through the handle, and then you have your pommel exposed there on the end. And you can certainly, you know, use that pretty aggressively. And it's not just a little, you know, rounded out section. There's still some texture on there as well. So let's zoom in and show you what that jimping looks like so you can see how aggressive it actually is. Here's a look at your jimping, and you can see, I mean, that it's obviously quite aggressive. I would definitely recommend, if you're going to be using this knife for a long time, to be wearing gloves as you actually hold the knife, because as you can see, it is definitely quite textured there. So keep that in mind when it comes to using this knife if you do end up purchasing it. I did have a gentleman contact me the other day and ask me about the Seal Strike and what I thought about it. The main question he had was about the tip strength. At least the thing that stuck out to me in our interaction was about the tip strength. Again, this knife is 0.16 inches at its widest part, and that really does get quite thin down here at the end. So it's not like you're not buying a BK2, you're not buying something with a big, you know, hefty blade the whole way around. Definitely thickest here, and then it's very much going to thin out at the end. And that is why I would say this knife tends toward tactical use. You could certainly use this as a camping knife. You know, I wouldn't use it to be batoning a ton of stuff, though I will show you that it can do that. But just by the size of it, the thickness of the blade, I would say camping, you know, using it maybe on a, if you want a knife, you know, just for some adventures, something you can keep in your car. But it just doesn't have that overall thickness and sturdiness to, I think, just to beat the heck out of, you know, to do a ton of batoning with. It's definitely not a knife you want to use for a lot of prying. Now that said, when people hear that, they're like, well, maybe I'll get something that's bigger. Yeah, but there are significant disadvantages to having a big clunky knife, and this thing is just sleek and slick. Very, very comfortable in hand to hold, a variety of different grips. It doesn't have to be just like a self-defense knife, or, you know, something that you're going to use if you're in the military. If you have applications where you need a knife that you can, you know, do some nice piercing here, you got the serrations, you got the plain edge, and then the fact that you do have it, you know, if you say you have it as a camping knife and you have a sharpener, you have the ferro rod built in, you have that strap cutter, that line cutter if you want to cut paracord, things like that. There are a bunch of nice features, especially when you add in that deluxe sheath if you go with that option. Let's start off showing you the SOG Seal Strike in use by actually utilizing the line cutter here. So I've got some paracord, and you're going to run it basically like this. And now, as you can see, it's up against the blade there, and that will cut through. As you saw, it does take a bit of tugging. It's not just like a razor blade on it, but you can get through it that way. Now, is that more effective than just taking the knife out and, you know, slicing through the cordage? Maybe. That one went really quick through. I'm not sure exactly what was going on there, but you certainly can see that this will work to cut through paracord. Did that all quite quickly. Let's use just the knife now to cut some cordage, and I got some paracord here. First, I'll cut it using the unserrated portion of the blade. So that works, as you would assume. It is a knife. It should be able to cut through paracord. And then let me show you quickly here, cutting with the serrations. And that just tears through it real quick. You have no problem whatsoever. I'll double them up here. That worked quite well. So it's gonna get through the paracord and other things like that, whether you're using just the knife by itself, or you're using the knife inside the sheath. It's going to get the job done. We'll do some more cutting here, and we'll use the paracord, but instead of slicing through it, I'm just going to kind of rock this back and forth to cut through it on top of this piece of wood here. So that works. And this is the factory edge, so I haven't sharpened it, not touched it up at all. And it's doing the job just fine. Do a couple more here. So yeah, SOG Seal Strike doing the job on paracord pretty much any way you want to cut it. You can probably see around the knife here there are a bunch of punctures in the top of this slog. I've used this slog as a means to test the tip strength on different knives, and I'm going to do that again with the SOG Seal Strike here. So let's see how well this thing holds up. Now I didn't go totally house there on stabbing this in, but it was in, you know, probably up to about this point and maybe a little bit beyond that on the tip. It's not made to be an ultimate pry bar. It's not like a BK2 or something like that, which some people call it, basically a sharpened pry bar. But it did hold up. You know, if the steel was really weak, it would have snapped then, or we would have seen some bends. I do know that the late Boy Scout, in his video, after he did that, he did get a little bit of a bend in the tip of his blade. This one, as I've looked at it, I don't see any issues whatsoever. It looks solid to me. So yeah, that's gonna, as far as for my test, it's gonna hold up as far as the overall tip strength there. We'll start off doing a little chopping, and you'll see immediately that I've got my finger, my first finger and my second finger basically on these two little end grooves. It's just going to give me more leverage. But just by the weight of the knife, it's probably not going to, you know, you're not going to do 3 swings and be through this sumac tree. But I'll show you what it looks like nonetheless. We'll do a little more detail work here. We'll start with the serrated edge and then work up to that plain edge. We'll flip it over and work using just the plain edge now. Here's a look at what we did with the serrated edge, and then over here with the plain edge. And you probably saw actually chopped off a bunch of the shavings I had started to get with the plain edge, but both of those definitely are going to work as far as some of that little more detailed work. Here's a little bit more aggressive work now, and we'll kind of make a point on the end of this, like maybe for a tent peg, or if it was something for a snare, trap, something like that. And here's your end result for that. Nice fine point. So you can certainly, you know, use it to just for general camp tasks, or even if you had to do something like make a fishing spear or something like that. A nice fine point there. That was easy to do. I would say in the vast majority of cases I would not be batoning with this knife, but to show you that it can actually do some of that work, we're going to test it out in that way and show it to you on camera. And here we have a look at the pile of wood that we have batoned. What I've got right here is just a huge roll of paper towels, kind of an industrial size roll, and it's quite thick, but it's got some softness to it. So we're going to test out just the ability of this knife to pierce as we stab into this thing a couple of times. And I'll give it a lot of force this time. So you're talking probably about 5/8 of an inch to an inch as far as how deep this is going in. Let's wrap up here talking about the SOG Seal Strike. When it comes to what category I would put this knife in, I would say it could be a camping knife, and then I would probably skip over the bushcrafting and the wilderness survival categories and move up to, you know, a tactical knife as well. So camping, or on the other end, a tactical knife. Now let me explain why I would put this knife in those two categories, but not the other two categories of bushcraft and wilderness survival. So camping knife, it's got a bunch of functions between this and the sheath that allow it to be good just for use around camp. So, you know, you got to cut some cord, you got to cut some food. It's got that nice piercing tip, and you do have a mix of your plain edge and your serrated edge, nice and light. So if you're going to be hiking a lot, backpacking, nice to have a sturdy knife, but nonetheless one that doesn't weigh too much. And then tactical, because it's built to ultimately, I think, be a tactical knife. That piercing edge is very much going to be effective for self-defense and things in that category. And this is going to fall, you know, as far as the design and the style of it, it's going to fall in the category of the SOG Seal Pup, the SOG Seal Team. I mean, different knives like that. It's not going to be as expensive as those knives, and probably not going to function as well on, you know, some of those higher end SOG knives, but it's definitely geared more toward, you know, that tactical line overall. Now the reason I wouldn't say wilderness survival or bushcraft, the overall style doesn't generally fit into what most people think as a bushcraft knife. And for wilderness survival, for me, it's just got to be thicker. This knife isn't thick enough. I don't think it could, the long-term use I would have concerns about, as we saw, or if you saw the video from Late Boy Scout, you know, the tip bending or something like that. So is that a fail? I don't think it's a fail, it's just that it's not built for those categories. So again, you know, camping, general recreational use, and then on the other end, a tactical end. Now again, I'm not a professional operator, I'm not in the military law enforcement, so you'd have to ask somebody who's in one of those fields, you know, what they would think about this knife, but it's definitely geared more toward, I would say, that end of things as opposed to like a wilderness survival knife. Another reason I would put it into the camping category is that if you get this sheath that does have the fire steel and the sharpener, there's just a couple extra features built in that are really nice to have when you're out in the woods. And then I like the fact that you can get it on and off easily as far as the this clip here. So if you're you know, you pack in and you're going for a day hike and you want to throw it on your belt, great. If it doesn't fit on, say, the waist belt on your backpacking pack, then you could just throw it into your pack, and it's not a huge thing. It's not going to take up a ton of space. I like the fact that it's lightweight. That's definitely a plus for me. I would also say that this knife could definitely work for a bug out bag, an emergency bag, a bailout bag. You know, if you want something that is a little bit more tactically inclined, this could work in that category. If you need a big hefty chopper, then I wouldn't put this knife in your bag, but I would definitely consider this, you know, for an emergency bag, an emergency kit, especially if I wanted something that didn't weigh a ton. Overall, this knife has been fun to use and to test out, and I've got more experience with SOG's folding knives than I do with their fixed blades, but this one has performed well, and we'll see long term, as always, you know, how it holds up and what are the different uses that I prefer for it as opposed to you know, ones I wouldn't use it for. And as always, if you've got comments because you've had this knife, you use this knife, you know somebody who's used this knife, leave the comments down below so you can get the discussion started and help people out when they're deciding if this is the right knife for them. Thanks as always for checking out the videos. Please subscribe to Everyday Tactical Vids here on YouTube if you have not done so already. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, check us out on Instagram and Tumblr as well. Take care.